Okay, we're going to start with our mise en place, which is our prep ingredients, which are our cutting utensils, our bowl, and that simply means just to set up. Mise en place simply means to prepare. Okay.
Your video's not showing, just
Okay.
your.
Yep. I'm sorry, I had a little pause there. Can you see now? Make sure.
You're still sharing your screen.
Oh, okay, let me stop share. Okay.
There.
I had a delay.
Thanks.
Okay, excellent. All righty. So, okay, so we have our tomatoes here. So we're going to basically go through what we're using. In the start of the show, as I always like to show people, is our tomatoes. So we have 128-ounce can of our San Marzano tomatoes. Now, San Marzano means they've been peeled, they've been pretty much steamed, and you can use any type of brand. I just use Cento. If you, those of you are familiar up north, is very popular. 120-ounce can of that. I have 2 cans of fire roasted tomatoes, and I just use Piedmont Hunts, but you can get any other tomato there. The purpose of balancing the 2 tomato products is the fire roast is going to give it a little kick and kind of get break down the acid a little bit, because these have been breaking down and also as well. Okay, I have 2 small chopped onions that we're using. We're using red onions for aromatics and flavor today. 3 cloves of garlic that's minced as well. We have 1 chopped carrot. What I did was I kind of made my little spice area here. I have some pepper, a little bit of thyme, and some smoked paprika. It's just to give it a little kick and flavor. We have some kosher salt that we're using. Okay, and we have some olive oil as well as a base. This is our fat for today. You could use vegetable oil at home, but when I found out I do this tomato soup base, it basically gives it a nice flavor and nice texture. It's not very heavy. If you want to use a vegetable oil, it is going to be very heavy, but a light olive oil is going to really do well when you're sauteing your veggies. Okay. We also have a creamy aspect, which is our heavy cream. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, full transparency, because we're home cooks, right? This is actually light cream, okay? And the light cream is because there in North Carolina and some grocery stores, we have a shortage of heavy cream. Is anybody else experiencing that where they live? If you are, you can definitely come off.
Yep. Yep, we are.
Oh, go ahead. Is that Ingrid?
Oh, no, it's Lady. I said we are as well. We're not able to get a heavy cream.
Yes, I know. It's really one of those things that is hard to find. So if you could not find, whenever you all do this, if you cannot find heavy cream, you can definitely do whole milk. Okay, I have some whole milk here as a backup plan, whole milk. You could definitely use oat milk, but oat milk is going to be kind of sweet. If you use like any type of plant-based. Now, if you are going to make this strictly vegetarian, I would say definitely use a oat milk or a almond milk base with unsweetened. It kind of makes the soup a little sweeter. So I do have some light cream, y'all. I was able to find that in the grocery store, and I stocked up because guess what? I don't know if I'm going to see any more cream again. So anytime that I always tell my home cooks, anytime that you find something that's really hard to find, always buy one for now and then buy one for later. That's the tip that I love sharing. Now we're using vegetable broth today. I also have chicken broth that I'm using, but I'm kind of swapping this out because I'm going to make it and take it to someone that is not does not eat a meat product. So you can. This is one of the little hacks I wanted to show you about using a vegetable broth. Of course, broth, we know it's just pretty much the liquid from cooked foods such as beef or vegetables or seafood stock as well. Okay. Then we also have our inflammation friend, fresh basil. The basil is basically, it's going to give a nice, this is what makes tomato basil soup basil. Could you use dried? Yes, you could use dry because dry does last a little longer than fresh. Okay. And it's not as expensive either. So you can keep it in your cabinet for a long time. Anybody have any dry herbs at home that they have in their cabinet? You can definitely keep that for a long period of time. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to transition, and I started to heat up my actual skillet, my Dutch oven I'm going to use today. And I'm going to switch my camera angle so you guys can see it as we're moving along. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay. So let me transition here. Okay, guys, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with the aromatics. I'm kind of going to go and give you a quick little rundown here. So again, the onions, the red onions that we're using, red onions is going to give it a nice little pop of flavor with the tomatoes because we do have a lot of acid going here. When you saute the red onions, they're going to give it a little bit of a sweetness and kind of balance it out. Then we have garlic. Our garlic is going to be part of the aromatics as well. These are natural aromatics. And this is also kind of reduce the salt component because we're going to add that in there as well. Now I do have garlic that's been minced, and I've minced it and added a little bit of olive oil. I minced it in like a food processor. That's why it looks so perfect. I'm not going to lie. And so that's what we're going to use as well. Okay. So I'm going to start because my heat is really hot. I don't want my garlic to burn it. Everyone knows if you put garlic in hot heat, you're going to burn it because garlic is very sticky. It's one of those bulb ingredients that has to be used very lightly when it comes to heat. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just saute these aromatics here. This is your red onion. Now, could you roast your own tomatoes? You could, if you wanted to. If you wanted to do your own fire roasted tomatoes, if you have a grill and you want to do that instead of buying the can, you could as well. But this is really something that is easy to make, something that's kind of going to take the legwork out of making a soup and make it delicious for you. Okay, so I'm turning my heat down. To get my onions to sweat, I'm going to add in a little bit of kosher salt. And if you have any questions as we're going along, feel free to do so. Okay. Smells so good already. It's actually, whenever you know the onions are ready, you'll start to see a little bit of light coloring. The color of the redness will kind of go a little bit light red here, light purple, as most people will say. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my veggies. I'm going to add in my other aromatic, which is called, they call it pretty much Some people call it the Holy Trinity in New Orleans in the United States. We're adding the carrots in, which is going to give it sweetness. Again, we want to balance out the acidity of the tomato, okay? And then lastly, I'm going to add in my minced garlic. If you have any questions, feel free in the chat to respond here as we're going along. And we're going to get you guys a closer view here in a moment. Okay. To this, I'm going to add in a little bit of my smoked paprika, thyme, and black pepper. One thing about dry herbs, y'all, I'm going to show you a little secret. The heat actually opens them up and gives them more flavor. So even if you are using a dry herb and you want that freshness, the heat basically opens them up and it gives it a nice, more fresh flavor here. So it makes it's almost like magic, okay? So I'm gonna add a little bit more salt to kind of get my vegetables to sweat. Salt, heat, and oil does allow the vegetables to sweat and open up here. Okay. Oh, it smells so good. Y'all are going to be so amazed at this aromatics once you start putting this together. Now, in the recipe, I did not state smoked paprika, pepper, and any type of thyme. You can use any type of seasoning salt that you have at home in your state, in your country, in your area. For this, okay? Hey guys, how's it going? Let me know if you have any questions, those of you who are cooking along with us. Okay, so we've chopped up our aromatics. We have that chopped up as well. We have our garlic cooking. We have our 1 carrot cooking, and it's starting to sweat, okay? And we're going to move the camera so you can actually see how things are going in here. And just let me know if you have any questions as we're moving along. Okay. So as you can see, those are our beautiful veggies there and our seasonings to open up and give it some aromatics. Okay. And again, I did do a lot of this chopping. You can definitely do the chopping in advance, the dicing in advance, and kind of just so you can keep working as we go here throughout the recipe. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Any questions about substitution or anything that you would like to add? Or any questions about what you could add to this? Okay. All right, so now what we're going to do is that we're going to turn this down because we don't want our garlic to burn. One thing about garlic, if you have it up too high, like I said before, it'll burn and it will be really unpleasing when it comes to your recipe, okay? So we're on step 2 now, guys. It says stir in both cans of your tomato that we have. So we're going to add all the tomatoes in. This is our San Marzano tomatoes, which again, you can do crushed tomatoes, you can do plum tomatoes, but we're going to add that in there. And even though it's whole, remember we're using a device to break down the soup a little later, towards the end of the recipe. Okay. And I'm going to put the heat back up to medium heat. The second star of our show that makes tomatoes are our roasted tomatoes, fire roasted tomatoes, guys. And again, you can buy any brand. It can be the store brand. You can actually, if you have a grill, you can put some whole tomatoes on there and just grill them until that skin gets a little dark and you can peel it. Okay, so we're going to add our 2 cans of our fire roasted tomatoes. And we're going to turn we're still on medium heat here as we're cooking along. Okay. Any questions, guys? I know we're kind of moving through this, but I want to make sure everyone, if you have any questions, you can definitely put them in the chat. Do we have any questions at this time in the chat? Just gonna check and see. Okay. All right. So this is going to come to a simmer. Okay. And we're going to simmer this on a medium low heat. The thing is, the sugars from the tomato can overcook and burn at the bottom. So you want to make sure you just keep stirring and combining that as well. Okay. Now, if you want to use low sodium tomatoes, you can, or unsalted tomatoes, you can as well. I did use San Marzano, which is the type of process they use with tomatoes, unsalted, because I am adding kosher salt. We're also adding a veggie broth that has some sodium in it as well. So you can make it very low sodium friendly for someone at home that has maybe have hypertension issues. So you can definitely do that as well. So that's an option. Definitely can go unsalted as well. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what this looks like here as we go along with the soup recipe. And we are almost at the home stretch here by adding the rest of our ingredients in. I'm adding some little bit of more salt as we go along. Okay. And we're going to add some more of our seasoning. Again, this is very friendly, seasonally friendly as well. Okay. So this is our tomatoes, our aromatics that's added in. And it smells so good. I wish you guys could smell it. I wish I had smell-o-vision through Zoom so you could smell it. Okay. But definitely when you make this at your leisure, you'll be able to go back and smell the awesome smells that we have going on today. Now, what we're going to do now, I added some more of the seasoning, as it says, so step 3, bring soup to the boil. So what we're going to do before we do that, we're going to add in our 4 cups or our container of broth here. This is what makes soup, guys. Any type of broth that you have is going to create this nice liquid feel here. And because we have several veggie components in here, we are going to use pretty much 4 cups of this. And as you can see, it's starting to loosen up as well. Okay. Now, you could go out and buy a can of tomato soup, right? We could do that. But when you are making versus when you purchase it in a store versus making it yourself, you're getting a lot of sodium, right? And if you have someone that has a special diet need, you know, whatever is processed, whatever is canned, and that's made, you can't really take anything out because it's been sold to you. So the beauty of making soup or making things from scratch, and that's what we focus on, Sophisticated Eats by Lachey, is so you can know what you're eating and you understand what you're putting in your recipes. Okay. So again, that is listed here and there. We just added that. So we're going to bring this to a boil for about 15 minutes and let that kind of do its thing and simmer as we go along. So the follow-up will be that we would add our light cream, which is going to give it that creaminess texture. Okay. And we're going to add in the basil. Now, the reason why you would not add the basil while it's simmering, because number one, you want your liquid, which is your broth and your tomatoes and your other vegetables, to get soft and kind of blend in and mesh well together with your seasoning and salt flavors. Now, the basil, if you add it in now, it's going to be a little strong. Now, if you like basil and you say, hey, I want to go ahead and add it in now, fine. However, it is going to be a little powerful. I recommend that you add in that basil at step 5, which I do have that here in your recipe. When you add that cream in, then you'll have it simmer on low and you have the perfect balance of the flavors when you add that basil in. Because I will tell you that basil can get very strong, especially if you're using fresh basil. Dry basil, not too much until you actually add heat to it. Do we have any questions about the basil and adding it in at this time? Definitely you can sign off in the chat if you have any questions. Do you have any questions about anything that any ingredients you would like to swap or wanted to swap in advance? Okay. All right. So again, we're going to let this come to a simmer here. And while that's going, we're going to kind of put everything to the side and start on our second recipe while that's doing this thing. And I will come back to that one and pick up with step 5 with the other items, okay, as we're going along. All right, any questions? Home cooks? Anybody? Okay. Okay, how many? Yes. Yes, you can. Yeah, we saw that. Yeah.
Okay.
We talked about the Bloody Mary. My assistant here was looking at the ice cube technique. We were talking about Scott with saving for later. Okay. All righty. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. And we're going to talk about our second recipe for today as we're moving along. Okay, so that's what we'll do in a moment and break it down, okay? All right, so our second recipe that we have for the comfort food to give us warmth and to make us feel good is going to be the baked potato soup. And today I have some things that I pre-prep in advance, but I want to talk about nutritional contributions. So we have the potatoes. That's our star of our show. And what I have, there are 3, the recipe calls for 3 baked potatoes, but I had some small potatoes left over from Christmas. Again, whatever you have in your cabinet, if you have red skin potatoes, you can do that. Anything that you have that you can use. So I do have that and I'm using. So the potato itself is one of those things. It's called a root vegetable. So anything that's a root vegetable is grown underground, which can lead to more nutritional value because of that growing underground technique, okay? So when we talk about potatoes, there's so many types. There's red, there's finger leaf potatoes. Who else knows any potatoes? You can definitely put in the chat that you've used before that you like. Then you have the yellow potato, the Yukon Gold potato, and then you have the baked potato. So we're going to use just a standard small baked potato for today. And the nutritional contribution for potatoes are potassium, calcium, which helps with our bones, helps strengthen our bones. We have vitamin C as well. One second. Okay, sorry about that. So we have that as well. We have iron, we have vitamin B6, and we have magnesium. So if you're trying to get a little bit of more energy going, vitamin B6 helps with that as well. Has anybody ever heard of these vitamins before? I'm sure vitamin C, of course, but now with the cold and flu season going on, these are all great properties that we can use and just eat. And when we talk about eating your vegetables, this is me eating your vegetables, okay? All right, so we're gonna move on and kind of show you our mise en place, our star of our show here, which gonna kind of slide our tomato group around here. So when you get to this recipe, and I will tell you another thing too about the baked potato recipe. if you have potatoes that you've cooked prior to making dinner, like you had steak and baked potatoes left over, or you had potatoes for breakfast, like you can use, or anything that you boil, you can definitely use any leftover potato to get this actual recipe going. So that's kind of one of the things that you can do as a hack in advance for that. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move forward and look at the parts of pre-prep. So the pre-prep, what I did in advance, 375, I roasted my potatoes. I just added a little bit of a spice rub, salt and pepper. You can do, this recipe is truly adaptable. You can do, I had some oregano, I had some salt, pepper, kosher salt as well, and fresh black pepper. So this is what we use to roast potatoes. Excuse me. For this. So I have about half a pound I use, which can yield to about 3 large potatoes as well. Okay, excuse me for a moment. So the next thing we have that we're using, we have some more vegetables, which are your celery and onions. Now, to kind of just save money, what I did was use that same red onion that I had. I bought an extra one, and I utilized it for the recipe. So again, this is when we talk about the hacks of excuse me, purchasing things for one thing for now and one thing for later. Okay. Then you have the chopped celery. Celery has a ton of vitamins and ton of nutritional value as well that we're using. So we're going to use that in our method today. We also have some butter. Now you could use margarine. Excuse me. Butter is a little bit heavier, but however, I have organic, unsalted butter. So if you have any type of fat that you can use for this component, you can do that. If you want to use olive oil, you can do that as well. But this is why we're doing a creamy base soup. So this is what we're using for that, for the cream base. Okay. We have some flour for thickening agent. This is the thickening agent for our cream soup base that we're using. And then we have salt and pepper as well. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So what we're going to do now is that we have our baked potato soup that we have. We're going to start putting everything together. So, like I said, I kind of went ahead of the game here and got the potatoes going. Now I'm going to start with my cream base that we're using. So we are using whole milk. You can definitely use 2% fat-free or low-fat milk. And we're going to use also low-sodium chicken broth. I want to put that out there. And this does say baked potato soup with thyme. So we do have some dry thyme for our aromatics. Thyme has a ton of vitamins and other properties as well. If you want to use fresh thyme, you can use parsley as well. But I always like to add some type of herb in here, okay? So what we're going to do, I have my Dutch oven back here that I'm going to get going. I'm going to start with my cream base. And then you're going to see me transition to the frying pan, which I'm going to saute our veggies. Now, the reason why I'm kind of doing this in two parts, because the celery and the onion, we want to break that down and use some of that actual oil, that fat, to go into our soup, excuse me, to make it, give it more flavor. It kind of also balances out the kind of plain, bland potato flavor that we have when it comes to potatoes. Okay. And I also have the star to show today is also our that makes our baked potato soup. How many of you like cheese on your baked potato? Anybody? I love a baked potato with cheese. Okay, so we got some good sharp cheddar that we're going to use today as well. So we're going to kind of grate that in advance. Okay, so I'm going to kind of use my whisk. That's one of the components that I've mentioned to you guys lately to melt, to help break down the melting content of my fat here. Again, if you want to use margarine, you can, or any type of vegetable oil, any type of fat. Okay. Now, while that's going, I'm going to put that on low because I don't want that to overburn. Because when you talk about butter, because it's a fat, because it's a dairy component, and it has some type of cream in it as well, it can't burn. So you want to make sure whenever you do this at home is that you put it on low heat and just kind of let it melt out. It'll melt quickly, especially if you have it at room temperature as well. So that will be there. So I'm going to let that melt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start chopping up my potatoes. They are cool. So what I like to do, there's two ways that you can do this. You can kind of,
I'm sorry to interrupt. You're still sharing your screen.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Let me stop sharing. Okay, thank you guys. I thought I had stopped that share. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Thank you. So what I want to show you is that you can actually peel or you can actually unpeel your potato. I like to keep the potato peeled and I leave some unpeeled as well. So this is after you have roasted your potatoes. Okay. And what you're just going to do is you're going to chop. I still have some of that skin on. You can just basically do a rough chop. And this just helps break the potatoes down whenever we're using them for the recipe. And again, I have one that has the skin on. It's very soft. And this is after the potatoes have been cooled. Okay. So our butter it's not ready yet. So I'm just going to kind of chop a couple of these up. Now with potatoes, because this is going to break down, they don't have to be perfect. This can be definitely a rough chop as you slicing them. You can also do, again, if you want to basically peel it before boiling, you can do that as well. Okay. So that's another method as well. So here we go. I'm just chopping a couple of these up. Again, I like to keep the skin on because it kind of gives that smokiness flavor. If you're not going to use bacon, could you use bacon instead of the butter? You could, if you would like to. I've had people say they use bacon. I had people say they didn't use bacon. I had people say they use ham as well because they kind of made up a ham and potato soup. I don't know if anybody has ever had that before as well. Okay. So I just kind of chopping these up. I got a couple more. And again, they're very soft. They've been roasted for a while. They have the flavor, salt and pepper, everything on it. I'm just cutting these through here. Okay. Again, you could do this a day in advance as well as you're cutting along and chopping along here. All right. The more potatoes, the better. Okay. The more that joins the party here, because this is potato soup, the better. And again, the skin, guys, is where the most nutritional value is. This is where that potassium is. This is where the calcium is. Even though it is roasted, we have a little bit of olive oil, but that skin is where you're going to have most of your nutritional properties when it comes to eating potatoes. Okay. All right. Any questions as we go along? And like I said, you can do this with any potato. It doesn't have to be a russet potato. It can definitely be like any type of red skin potato as well. Okay. Do you have any questions in the chat when we move on here? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to show you guys, we're going to start with the actual soup base. And our soup base is going to be our flour, our 3 tablespoons of flour, 3 tablespoons of butter. Our butter is already melted. The flour and the butter is going to create a roux. Has anybody ever heard of that? R-O-U-X? It's kind of a French term for paste. Okay. You can use cornstarch if you want to. If you're doing a gluten-free recipe, you can do gluten-free flour as well. But this is going to give it a thickening method. Okay, Scott, I know that's right. Listen, I love me a good roux. Okay, especially whenever you got that butter and it kind of just thickens up. Okay, listen, we're gonna have a roux. We have a roux revival. Okay, so guys, I just added my flour to the butter here. Okay, and it's going to make like a little paste. This is an equal part fat, equal part flour. Okay, I'm going to turn it up and stir it. Okay, because we want to add in our 2 cups of milk to this. And again, because my butter has already melted, my flour has absorbed the butter. This is going to give me the flavor, the texture of a cream soup. Most cream soup bases do have what is called a roux or some type of thickening element with that. So I'm going to add in my milk. Okay. And it's about 2 cups that I'm adding in. That I measured out. And this is going to thicken up as we go along. Okay. And my tomato soup, guys, almost time because it's kind of almost been that 15-minute mark there. I'm going to add that cream and add some more of that basil in a moment. Again, this is where you can do 2 recipes at one. Create it, make it for lunch, make it for dinner. This is whole about the hack today is cook now, save for later. Okay. Again, both of these recipes, you can do that. And you can make them at the same time simultaneously back and forth here. Could you use a crock pot or an Instant Pot? You could. As long as you have the Instant Pot setting. The thing about Instant Pot, when you put things on a saute method, does anyone have an Instant Pot at home? Chime in, everyone, or you ever use the Instant Pot? Definitely chime in the chat if you ever had an Instant Pot or use Instant Pot or even crock pot. Because you can definitely do these soups in a slow cooker method. You can kind of add everything in, saute your veggies in advance, mix it all together and put it away and go clean, go do something, go walk your dog, whatever you want to do. So it's one of user friendly as well. Okay, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Scott. Okay, excellent. So yes, the slow cookers are very, very popular. Again, the Instant Pot is too. But so we're going to wait for this to thicken up. And while that's going, because this is kind of a dovetail and multitasking, I'm gonna go ahead and get my aromatics together. That's going to be my onion, my small onion, and my 1 stalk of celery here. I'm going to put that on medium heat. Okay. And I'm going to saute that as that's going along. Again, to help the veggies sweat, I'm going to add a little bit of S&P, salt and pepper. Okay. As we're going along. So that's going to saute and get that ready. And again, because of because also the celeries are also a root vegetable, they're kind of hard in texture, right? But when you saute it and break it down, the aromatics, the flavor, it can take the place of adding so much salt to a recipe. And again, as you can see, 2 things I did today that each recipe has in common. We use vegetables. We use fresh vegetables. We did also add salt and pepper at the beginning. So what we're doing, we're building flavors, okay? And you can do this at home as well. Add the salt earlier to get the aromatics going, to get the flavor palette going, to set a base for flavor. So when you get your food to your table, you don't have to add salt and pepper then, because again, that's increasing more sodium. We want to be healthy in 2023, right? We want to do some other things that kind of take that place of that. Okay. So my roux is starting to thicken, and I'm going to bring the camera closer so you guys can see what we got going on here. Okay. So we have the flour, we have the butter component, and this is going to thicken up. It's starting to thick up now. And what you want to do whenever you whisk it, you don't want to have any flour or any butter component. You just want to have liquid, which means that your flour and your butter have combined well with your milk mixture. Okay. So I want to stir that in there and cook it to it's thickened. Again, this is our base for our cream soup. Okay. So I don't want to leave this because again, because of the fat, the lactose, the sugars that are found in milk and in butter, if you do kind of leave it attended without stirring it, you're going to start, it may start to stick and start to burn, or we call it scorch. We don't want any scorched milk. We don't want any scorched potato soup. Okay, we don't want people talking about our soup. Okay, we want people saying, oh, it's great. Not saying, oh, it tastes burnt. So we want to make sure that our family is enjoying it, and you can sit down and enjoy it as well. Okay. So our aromatics are jumping over here. Our celery and our onions are cooking and combining. Our sauce is starting to, our actual roux mixture is starting to combine. Okay. And it's starting to thicken. So we're gonna let this kind of do its thing. We're gonna stir it, make sure it's come to a thickened consistency. You're also going to start to see it reduce in height here, this actual white sauce mixture as well. So we're gonna turn that down. Our aromatics are cooking, so we're gonna kind of keep that in there as well. You probably hear that sizzling in the background, okay? So we're just gonna stir that, keep stirring that. Our sauce is starting to thicken, I can feel it. When you start to see also the bubbles form at the edge of your pot, that's also a sign that your sauce is thickened. Another way that you can tell that your sauce is thickened, the white sauce base for the potato, is that you can see it coat the whisk. This coating method, that means that your sauce is also starting to thicken. When it starts to pick up and sit on the wire whisk. Oh my goodness, it looks so pretty. It's beautiful, guys, okay? I get happy about food. I don't know about you. I love getting happy about food. Okay, so our recipe, our potatoes are cut, our sauce is going, our aromatics are moving as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to focus on our assistant, or what makes potato soup, creamy potato soup, okay, is our cheese, okay? So I'm just gonna take like a container, okay? And I'm just gonna grate the cheese here, all right? Let's talk about cheese for a moment. So I am a fan, does anyone like shredded cheese, like pre-shredded cheese at the grocery store? I love cheese in general, but let me tell you the difference between this cheese block and a pre-shredded cheese. The pre-shredded cheese has some stabilizers in it, y'all. As you know, the pre-shredded cheese does, any cheese lasts longer because cheese pretty much is aged. It goes through they basically take it, the milk product, put the bacteria cultures in to process the cheese. Now, there's gorgonzola cheese, there's your hard cheddar cheese, there's your soft mozzarella cheese. There's so many different cheeses, right? Today, we're using a sharp cheddar to bring out the flavor and texture of our cream sauce. Whenever you're doing a white sauce or a cream sauce, sharp cheddar is your friend, okay? You can definitely use mild cheddar. You can use low-fat cheese, okay? Cheese is high in cholesterol, I will tell you guys. I'm being very transparent because we're at home, we're home cooks, and we're also thinking about, ways that we can stay healthy during 2023. So if you can also do vegan cheese. I like Vola. Vola has a great vegan cheese. I've used that before. If you're trying to switch to a non-meat component, you can do that as well. So let's go back and talk about shredded versus block cheese. So your block cheese, of course, you'll get more. Now I purchased a 32-ounce block of cheese. I'm making mac and cheese this week. I'm going to make tacos this week. I cut the cheese up and I break it into pieces and pretty much wrap it and stack it. Now, the shredded cheese is going to cost more. Even though they say it's 2 cups in the bag of cheese, it's really a cup and a half, a cup and a quarter, guys. So it depends on if it's shredded finely, you'll get more cheese. But however, I like to tell home cooks, does it take time to shred cheese? Yes. But guess what? I can shred this cheese, y'all, and put it in a Ziploc bag and save it for later. Now, that's stretching your meal dollar. That's one hack that I want to share because cheese just tastes better whenever it's grated, okay, from an actual cheese block as well. When you see buy one, get one, buy one for now, buy one for later. I always say that if you see cheese or any dairy product, because of the cost, it's going up 40% on some grocery items. Okay. And how many of you all with the show of the chat feel that stretch wherever you live, wherever you're from, you're seeing those grocery prices go up, especially dairy, right? Cheese, meat, eggs is another thing. So we're going to go ahead and shred this up, guys. Okay. And this is going to give us a nice little texture, a nice little component here as well. Okay. All right. So I'm going to shred the whole thing, guys. Listen, I want to get my money's worth. Okay. Now, let me talk about shredding. I know some of you may know this. So you see this little piece here? That's a small piece, right? I want my fingernails. Okay. I want my skin and my nails. So what you can do, another way that you can actually break this down, you can use the palm of your hand and shred it, or you can just cut it and break it up. Okay. But listen, it's not going on a taco. It's not going to be presented at a cheese grating contest. Okay. So we're just going to add this cheese to our liquid component. This is going to, our milk has been thickened already. And this is going to give it the nice cheddar feel that we have here. Okay. So we're going to mix in our cheese. And as you can see, it's kind of, when the cheese starts to separate and start to melt, you know you got good quality cheese. And that's what the block cheese will do versus the shredded cheese. It'll give you nice melting component. Okay. And this is our white sauce base that we use with sharp cheddar. Here we go, right there. Okay. So what I want to do now is I want to add in my potatoes. Okay. Again, potato soup will not be potatoes without potato soup, potatoes. Okay. All right. So I want to add that in there. And again, I do have some color components with the potatoes here. Okay. I have my aromatics I'm going to add in. And I want to keep that oil. That's my sauteed celery. That's also my red onions. I'm going to add in a little bit of S&P, salt and pepper, y'all, because again, we're building flavor. Okay. And even though you can add the thyme at the end, who has time to add thyme? Y'all saw that little trick there. I kind of joke. So I'm adding some fresh thyme there. Okay. So I'm going to mix this in. It is very thick because I have the potatoes. Now, if you want to You can do half the potatoes, but I love the taste of potatoes in my soup. And that's how I would pretty much make my soup as well, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in some of my chicken broth that we're adding here. You can use chicken stock, you can use veggie stock if you wanna make this veggie or plant-based like we talked before, or vegetarian-based as well. So I'm gonna add that in, okay? And I'm just stirring the broth in here. And I'm using low sodium broth, guys, so you know. Okay, so I'm adding that in there as well. You see the colors pop up from the celery, the red onion as well. Okay. If I wanted to, I could add a little bit more of the salt, excuse me, a little bit more vegetables. If you want to say, hey, I want to add 2 stalks of celery, you could, or more onions, or you could add more garlic as well as a component. Okay. Now, if you are, get the rest of that cheese, guys. If you are a person that is texture, that means that you don't mind tasting your food, then you can leave this pretty much whole as well. Okay. And move our components here. Now, I have not forgotten about our tomato soup, guys. We're almost at the stretch here of our time. So I'm going to let this simmer for a little bit here, a little longer. And I wanted to just show you guys what we have going here. Okay. So this is our soup base. It looks amazing. It smells amazing. Our creamy baked potato soup. Now, what you want to do is let it simmer. So your actual sauce and everything, all of your components can be added in. So simmering on medium low heat, because you do have cheese, you do have the potatoes there. And you could actually puree this soup, guys, if you wanted to have like a little bit of a creamy smoothiness to it, or you can just pretty much leave it as a whole component and not puree it. So that is an option as well. So we're gonna actually just let that simmer and do its thing. And we're gonna move on to our tomato soup, okay? I'm gonna turn that down here. Anybody have any questions so far as we're coming closer to the end here for our class? If we're talking about soups, we're talking about all these things that are amazing during this cold winter months. Okay. All right, so guys, this is the soup after it's been simmered. Okay. Our carrots have been softened. Our onions have been softened as well. Okay. So I want to start adding in our creamy component and our rest of our herbs for today. So we have some chopped up basil, going back to the basil here. We talked about that. So I'm just gonna sprinkle it in. It looks so beautiful against the red, guys. Almost giving me Christmas feels, okay? Because of the redness and the green kind of makes it pop. Okay, so we're adding in our fresh basil. Okay, as we are going here. Anyone have any questions? Let me know if you have any questions in the chat. Feel free. Okay, so that 2 leaves I just kind of chopped up. And what you do is basically roll the leaves up and just chop them, or you can tear them. Okay. All right, to that, I'm gonna add in our light cream. And this is going to give us our creamy component of the tomato, okay? Makes our soup the creamy tomato soup base that we discussed here, okay? Look at the swirl, look at the swirl, amazing. Now I turn my heat off, guys, because I'm going to puree this soup in the blender. You can use a food processor as well. Okay, my potato soup talking, y'all. That's what you hear. So I've added in about, or you could definitely use the immersion blender. Has anyone ever used an immersion blender? I have one of those as well that you can use. The immersion blender basically has a nozzle that you actually just insert in, and it breaks down any type of soup that you're going to do. If you're making a homemade tomato sauce, we do have a homemade pasta sauce class coming up soon. So you'll see me kind of whip that out for that as well. The only thing about immersion blender, you have to let the actual sauce components cool completely. It can splatter. I'm all about safety here. We talk about home cooks. We're cooking at home. You see on Food Network, they do all this stuff, but they have so many people in the background helping, guys. So they make it look so beautiful, make it so effortless. But what you don't know is that when you put that the hot pot, you have that mechanism, it can actually cause scalding. So you want to be very careful. If you are using a pot here, I'm just adding a little bit of salt, guys. You have to use something that's a little bit deep when we talk about using an immersion blender to break this down. Now, you do want to break this down because you do have that tomatoes, you still have the whole tomatoes there. You still have some of your other components, okay? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna transfer this to our blender. And this is going to help bring it down. So what we're going to do is go back and check our creamy potato soup, guys. Again, like I said, these are 2 recipes that you do simultaneously, guys. And this looks amazing already, and it smells so good. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to transfer this. Anybody have any questions? Now, if you do want to use the immersion blender at home, you can add ice cubes to this to kind of cool it down, take it off the heat, let it rest as well when we're doing this, okay? So you can use a ladle or a spoon to actually break down your soup component, okay? I am going to transfer this. You could put it back in the same pot, but I am going to transfer this into another pot as well, okay? So just so you can see the difference here whenever we are making this as well. Okay, again, you see the flavors, you see the colors, guys. Lots of vitamins, lots of minerals here that we're using as a component as well, okay? So I'm just gonna switch out, guys, to my large saucepan here, and I'm going to transfer our hot components. We're gonna move this around because while we're at the end here, we're kind of we want to break this down to make it a smooth, creamy tomato base, okay? So we're gonna switch around here. And we're going to, now if you do not have a blender, I'm going to give you a little hack here because we're talking about recipe hacks and things we could do. If you do not have a blender or food processor, you can use pureed tomatoes, things that just pretty much liquefy. You could do like a tomato sauce, just liquefied tomato sauce, add those aromatics in, and then let it cook down really well. Okay, instead of using red onion, you can use dry onion seasoning as well, and everything else dry. So if you don't have a food processor, because we're being realistic here, I'm thinking about my home cooks, or a food blender or immersion blender. That's another way that you can do that. Okay, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer the sauce into my blender here that I have. Okay. So I'm going to do that as we're moving along. Any questions, guys? We're coming to an end of our class here. We're running in good time. Anyone have any questions about the recipes or any techniques or any comments? Feel free as we're doing this here. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of transfer this here. And also, I will add in remember we talked about that fresh Parmesan. Parmesan is a great component for tomatoes, any type of tomato sauce, any type of sauce component. It's a nutty, it's a hard, very mild flavored cheese, and it goes well in Italian recipes, and it really is the partner of tomatoes. So we'll add that in a little bit there, okay? So I'm going to move along here. Okay, before we transfer some of this. Okay, I'm gonna put some more of this in here. Okay, any questions as we're kind of moving along? Okay, how many of you are looking forward to making these recipes at home? Anybody? Sound off in the chat. I want to hear from you guys as we're putting this together here. Anyone would like to share something they would add or think about adding as we're putting this recipe together with each recipe? Any adaptations or something that you're thinking about adding according to your dietary needs? You definitely can do that. We had talked about that. I sent that email out to you all about making it very doable for other diet components, special diets and needs. Okay. So I'm going to blend this up. I'm gonna pause here. Definitely sound off in the chat, please. Any type of things. I would love to know what my home cooks like to do. Things that they want to change, like any type of milk you want to use, as well as we're going along here. Okay. Anyone? Definitely. Free. You can definitely do. I think we talked about that before on that last class, Scott, the baking, about using plant-based things like coconut milk or oat milk or anything of that nature. So yes, you can definitely do that. This recipe is very user-friendly with that. And you can definitely do unsweetened oat milk or coconut milk or almond milk. I've done this recipe with almond milk and it does taste very good. So definitely you can do that. And if you have any questions, definitely reach out to me about that. All right, so we pulverized, we broke down all of this goodness. It smells so good. This is the cream base here of our tomato soup. And the benefits of using this blender, it does break down, and also you're still keeping your nutritional contributions as well, okay? You're still keeping your tomatoes, you're still keeping everything in as well. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna kind of move that over, okay? And I'm going to just show you guys real quickly here how we have, or what we have going on. Okay. So we have our tomato base, our cream tomato base here. And what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to keep stirring this component As you can see, look at all that hard work we have, right? Look at that. Doesn't that look amazing? And I'm going to pretty much, you can do this in batches when you're transferring the soup and you're blending it. And that's the best way to do, because we do have a lot of soup. We're talking about 4.5 cups of liquid here that we're using. So we're going to add into this our Parmesan cheese, which is going to give it a great flavor. Okay. Okay. So our tomato soup, again, is almost pretty much is doing this thing. Potato soup here, and our tomato soup is pretty much done, guys. So I want to show you also the little flecks of basil that we have going on. As you can see, the basil is in there. It's still amazing. And you know that it's creamy when it coats the spoon. When you see it coat the spoon, it's amazing, okay? And again, this is something when I had put in of one of your equipment instructions is to use a container, because you can basically use this and freeze this for later, okay? So look at this creamy goodness, guys. Any question about that tomato soup? Now, do you need to cook it further? You can cook it on medium, low heat to let it simmer down. However, again, we do have some of that heavy cream, or if you're using type of dairy or any type of plant-based milk, just constantly stir as well. Now, you could also add a little bit more S&P if you feel like it needs more salt, it needs more pepper component as well. So that's a component that you can add as we are moving along here, okay? All right, any questions about your tomato soup? Again, I'm going to keep doing that, but for the sake of time, I'll continue doing that off camera and add in the batches here, and that's how our tomato soup acts. Now, you can pair this with grilled cheese. You can add this with croutons on top, garnish it as well with any type of extra cheese as well. It makes a great, and I don't know if one you can put in the chat. If anybody ever had dipped a grilled cheese in a tomato soup growing up, it is amazing, okay? So this will even take you back a little bit to your childhood when we talk about creaminess and tomato. So if you ever dip cream cheese in tomato soup, definitely put in the chat yes, no, or I think I might have to try that, okay? As well, okay? So that is our tomato soup. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at our potato soup. Now, at this time, you could pulverize it, break it down, but again, you can leave it chunky as well, or thick with the potato component, okay? So this is after it simmer. It'll probably take a couple more minutes to simmer as we go along here, but that is our creamy potato soup. As we are here going along, okay? So this makes a great, great, great lunch. You can have this with salad. You can have it with a sandwich as well, okay? Has anybody ever had potato soup growing up, or have ever had your grandma's potato soup, okay? As well. Yes, you can. Alicia, yes, you can. So if you want to make it thicker, use half of the chicken broth. If you just want to use 2 cups of chicken broth, that's fine. The less chicken broth you use, the thicker it will be, okay? I like a little bit broth in mine because that's definitely my preference as well. Okay, thank you, Scott. Thank you for joining. I'll see you next time, okay? Thank you. So this is, you can do that as well. So that's a good question. Yes, if you wanted to make it thicker, again, because you're having the creaminess of it, you could definitely use only 2 cups of chicken broth as well. Okay. All righty. Any questions? I wanted to show you guys kind of how you could garnish these soups as well. Okay. You can add any type of garnish to it. Basil, cheese, anything. Again, you can also, another trick that I want to also put in mind, another hack, is that you can put these in containers, let it cool at room temperature, and put it in the refrigerator or freeze it. Now, I would not, because we talk about a little bit about temperature danger zone and cooking, I would not put this in a container and then put it in the fridge immediately because of the heat. So you want to let it cool completely and then transfer it to a Rubbermaid container and then freeze it. Okay, so you carefully can do that as well, but let it cool completely, guys. But you're talking about liquid heats up very fast in order for you all to do that. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to show you real quickly here how to put this all together. Okay. And I want to show you kind of how it will look in the bowl. So let me transfer here. So we're kind of about plating and pouring it in here. I'll pour that in there and serve it nicely. Okay. And what we're going to do is add a little bit of the basil and a little bit of the parm. Okay. So we have the basil and parm, and that's our soup. Okay. Ready to go, ready to eat. I'm not gonna eat on camera, okay, because y'all hear me slurping. I don't want to do that. But this is basically the best way to eat it. Now, if you don't want to garnish it and you're freezing it, you can definitely skip that out for later. Okay. So that's our creamy tomato soup right there. Any questions, guys? And again, if you do have any questions as you're coming along and doing this recipe, let me know. You'll be able to ask questions if you're making it at home at a later date. Okay. So I just added that on there. Okay. All righty. Any questions, guys? I'm going to stop my screen for one moment and give you guys time to respond as we are going along.